Hello, Cut the Crap crew. So Steve here with Cut the Crap and moved to Costa Rica, back again with another update. So today we did our 90-day border run. Okay, so we took a trip up to Nicaragua. We went through Peñas Blancas, which is the nearest town to the border where we did our crossing. So I'm just going to give you a little update about how the day went, what happened, and what the status is on the, oh, got something on my glasses, status on the Costa Rican border, Nicaraguan border. So we got up. We like to try and go really early because you never know what's going to happen. It's Costa Rica, and something that's supposed to take, an hour or two could end up taking all day. You never know. And so we always say get up early. Plus the border, this is kind of a tip, the border is usually a little bit less crowded, less busy early in the morning, especially because a lot of the tour buses will hit, sometime midday and into the afternoon and stuff. So we tried to go in the mornings. All right, so we got up about 5 o'clock, got on the road, stopped for gas. About 2 hours. Takes us about 2 hours, a little over 2 hours to get to Peñas Blancas, maybe 2:15. It depends. So we stopped for gas. So that took a little bit of time, and then no big stop, just fill up the car and go. But that took I don't know, 10 minutes or so. But we hit about maybe 3 miles outside of Peñas Blancas, or the border rather. We had an accident. So we're flying past all these trucks, a ton of trucks this morning. Man, there were a lot of trucks. There usually are a ton of trucks. And if you read our book, Cut the Crap and Move to Costa Rica, there's a link down below for a free sample. The free sample doesn't include the border crossing part, but we do talk about border crossings and give some tips in the book. One of the things we do talk about is that starting at least a mile out, and sometimes 2, you'll start seeing lines of trucks waiting to cross the border. All right, and so the trucks have to be fumigated. They have to go through an inspection and make sure that they're not carrying pests or what's the word, like invasive species, plants, or anything like that into the next country. It's just to protect the ecosystems of both countries. It happens at every border that I know of, just to kind of protect things from, crossing over and endangering the environment and so forth, plus just security checks, right? So these trucks take a lot longer. Anytime you're going to drive, that's another thing. If you're going to drive across the border in your own vehicle or in a rented vehicle, you need to plan extra time because you're going to wait with those trucks to get across the border, basically. We don't do that. We just walk across. So we drive to the border and we park and we walk across. But there was an accident today, and so we sat there, and we actually talk about this quite a bit in some of our tips of making sure you have things in your car, preparations in your car, because you never know when you're going to get stuck, okay, and for how long. So we sat there. It wasn't terrible today. We only sat there for probably 45 minutes, which may be terrible in a lot of other places, but here that's not bad. You can wait several hours depending on how bad the wreck is, how far away the emergency services are, those types of things. But today it wasn't terrible, but we did end up sitting there, and it did add quite a bit of time to our day. So we talk about having bottles of water in the car or snacks or things like that in case you do end up on a long stay. In fact, back when they were having the protests, a lot of times there's protests, and they'll block the road. Like the locals will just bring all their stuff out and block the road. And I have some friends that they're like, oh well, we just broke open the 6-pack and we just kind of had a little block party in the road until they opened the road back up. And so sometimes that happens. So that's kind of a tip of road tip of make sure you have stuff in your car to keep you entertained or hydrated while you're waiting. Anyway, it was about 45 minutes or so, and they cleared it, and we were able to get to the border. So, very busy with trucks today, which isn't uncommon at all, but it was especially so today. And then we were able to get to the border. Now, once we got out of our car, we had a gentleman come up. Whenever you park, so we come up and we park right next to the first booth that you have to pay at, and right after we got out of the car, this gentleman was, right there asking, telling us he's going to watch our car and in Spanish. So, he's going to watch our car and don't worry about it, blah, blah, blah. Then this lady comes up, and the two of them get in this argument, and they're going back and forth. Well, the lady was wearing a shirt that said Seguridad, security, border, and it wasn't like, she wasn't an official. She wasn't like border patrol or anything like that. But she had a badge because she was officially in charge of, you know, maintaining the parking lot, security in the parking lot and stuff. And this guy kept saying, peligro, peligro, dangerous for me to park my car there. And this woman is saying, he's just hungry. Well, you know, after we got away, she was able to talk to us a little bit and say, you know, he's just hungry. They're out here. They're just trying to get food. But she was official. She had her badge. And so that's the one we needed to talk to. So she was saying, yes, park right here. He was saying, no, you need to go park over here, where he was able to kind of control things because it wasn't an official parking lot. And anyway, so this skirmish breaks out. We're in the middle of this, not speaking a whole lot of Spanish, and they're just going a mile a minute, right? So I just kind of stood back and let the dust settle a little bit and just walked towards the booth where I knew I had to pay. And that's just, and let them deal with it, right? And then later we kind of worked out who was in charge of the parking thing. So when you park, you can expect to pay a couple of dollars, or, you know, a mil or 2 mil to pay the parking attendant before you leave. Okay, so usually a couple bucks, $2. If you're just going to go right across the border and back, a couple of bucks is usually, a couple of US dollars is sufficient. It's, you know, you can pay them more if you want, but they're not watching your car for more than an hour usually. Okay, and that's the other thing. If you get stuck and have trouble coming back, maybe you need to pay them a little bit more if they watch it a little bit longer. But for us, usually it's less than an hour or so, and so it's like, and they're watching however many cars, and they don't really watch it. You're keeping them from robbing you. Yeah, so it's kind of crazy. That's what my daughter said. It's like we're paying people to not rob us. It's kind of the way it works sometimes, but not in this case, because this gal was actually official. She had a badge, she had a shirt, she was legit. Anyway, so we walk up to the first kiosk and first little booth there, and this is right before you get to the place where they stamp your exit stamp. Okay, so this is the first place, and you pay your exit fee, and so that is $8 a person is what the first booth is. So $8 a person there. Then you walk and you go into where the immigration office is, so exiting immigration. And so you get your passport stamped as you're leaving Costa Rica, but you have to have the papers showing that you paid the tax, right? So then we got our thing stamped, that's great, and there's a restroom right there. We usually, because it's a long ride, that's usually where we use the restroom. And the ones on the Costa Rica side, this is an insider tip, and we talk about this in our book, the ones on the Costa Rica side are a little bit nicer than the ones on the Nicaragua side. So we try to go to the bathroom on the Costa Rica side if possible. So got our stamp, used the restroom, then we walk, and you walk, it's a ways, it's probably an eighth of a mile, maybe eighth to a quarter of a mile down the road there. And on the right-hand side, you have a gentleman who checks your passport, make sure you got your exit stamp, right, for leaving Costa Rica, on the Costa Rica side. And then just about 20 yards down the road, maybe even less, there's a Nicaraguan, and there was a couple of ladies working today, the Nicaraguan booth, and they check to make sure you got your stamps in Costa Rica as well, and if there's any problems with your passport right there. And then you cross the street and you go towards the immigration office. And once you're walking, and you'll see, you walk by where all the trucks are getting fumigated and getting washed and getting inspected and things. But you walk through and then you'll see the building. And there's like all these shops. This is on the Nicaraguan side. There's all these shops, or actually this is the border zone technically, I guess, because you're not officially in Nicaragua till you get your stamp. But there's all these shops there where they sell goods and stuff. And you'll see you change from Costa Rica police officers and Border Patrol to Nicaraguan Border Patrol. And that's right there where I was saying that the guys, this is in the border zone, which it's, I guess it's like in between. I don't know where the exact line is, but it's between offices, so you're in the border zone. But you go from Costa Rican guards to Nicaraguan guards, You walk in, you've got all these shops where they're selling food, they're selling t-shirts, they're selling chargers for your cell phone, and there's a bunch of guys running around with cards, cell phone cards, because they use different cell phone services in Nicaragua. So if you're going to use your phone in Nicaragua, this is a place where you can get a new card for your phone. They also do exchanging of money, because Nicaragua does not take the colones of Costa Rica, they take cordobas, which is the Nicaraguan money. But as we talk about once again in our book, take cash, take US dollars, because they take US dollars on both sides. Make sure you take small bills as well, because sometimes they don't have the change. So small bills, US dollars is the way to go. So we paid our $8 at the first place. This is now we're heading into the immigration office on the Nicaragua side. Right as you come into the door, there's a booth, and you'll pay $1 per person. This is another tax. I don't recall, it's written in our book, but I don't recall which the name of this tax is, but there's $1 per person tax there. You take that receipt with you up to the counter, and 1 second, let me just check. Okay, so you take that with you up to the counter, and there you will get your, they will check your passport, and they will take the next fee. Oops, excuse me, sorry about that. They'll take the next fee for the Nicaraguan side. So this one is the most expensive one. So this is going into Nicaragua, and this is a $12 fee. Okay, $12 per person. And so then they stamp your passport again, and you go, or they scan it and they write out their paperwork. They don't actually stamp it. They just sign it and stuff. Actually, they do stamp it at this one. So you pay the $1 at the booth, then you walk up to the counter, and they'll stamp it, pay $12, and you're into Nicaragua. Okay, boom. Then you walk through the doors. Now, if you're bringing suitcases with you, baggage of any kind, they've got conveyors that you have to send them through the customs for inspection. I take nothing, so I just walk right through. My wife and daughter took their backpacks, which they use kind of like purses, and they were able to just throw those on the conveyor and go right through. No problem. Now, we went on a missions trip a year ago. I went on a missions trip with our church, and we took in several things for the people in the orphanage that we were going to serve, and they're going to tax you, especially if you have multiple of the same thing. Like we had a bunch of toothbrushes and flip-flops, and they were charging us for the tax for those. So that was kind of crazy. But you're bringing goods into the country, you got to kind of account for that. So watch out for that. It is a border. It is a customs agent. Anyway, so we grab our stuff off she grabs her purse off the conveyor, and we walk out the doors to the right, and you just walk straight ahead, and you go right back in to so that was immigration into Nicaragua. Now we're going to go Nicaragua emigration, exit. So we're going to exit. Hey, Nikki. So we're exiting Nicaragua now, and we're going to head back towards Costa Rica. Okay, so as you walk in the door to the left, there's another booth just like there was on the other side, and this is again another $1 per person, $1 per person at this one. Go up to the counter, and now we're going to get our exit stamp for Nicaragua. So we had our entrance stamp on the other side, now we're getting our exit stamp from Nicaragua. We get that, and it is another $4 per person. All right, so we had 8, 1, 12, 1, 4. Okay, and that's the last one. So once you get your stamp there, and we're good to go. Now I want to point out here, we just went in one door of Nicaragua and out the other. Okay, so we didn't spend time in Nicaragua, and you don't have to unless you are bringing goods into the country for sale or some other things like that. Now, we are U.S. residents, we are U.S. citizens, and so that's part of it. We have U.S. passports, and so there's different rules depending on which country you're from and things along those lines. But for U.S. citizens, currently, you don't have to spend time in Nicaragua. When we talk about this, there was a time where we got told we had to spend some extra time. There's many times we've been told we had to spend extra time in Nicaragua, but there was one time in particular that this was a problem. You can read about that story in the book. It's called Held Hostage in Nicaragua is the chapter, the section, but we talk about that. But as a U.S. citizen, you can just walk out and back in, okay? You don't have to spend time in Nicaragua. So We got our passport from Nicaragua immigration, exiting Nicaragua, and then it's walk back down the road to the same way we came. You know, we got to cross back over, have the ladies that saw us on the way in check our passport again, make sure that we have our exit stamp from Nicaragua this time. Then we go to the Costa Ricans right next to it, and they check and make sure that the stamps are all in line. And then we keep going up and we cross back over the road and go into the opposite side of the building here, because we are we're going to immigration of Costa Rica now. So now we're going into immigration of Costa Rica, go to the counter. At this one, you need to be able to show onward travel. Okay, this is a key point. So make sure if you have plane tickets or bus tickets or anything like that, you have to have it with you when you go. I have been able to use my cell phone and been able to show them on my cell phone where I've had tickets in the past, but I always like to take a paper copy. This is kind of my tip. I like to take a paper copy because it seems to work better, faster, and I don't have to worry about them, you know, checking into my phone. They legally, if you give them your phone, they legally have the right to go through your phone and see if there's anything illegal on your phone, and that could potentially be a problem if you've got something illegal on your phone, any kind of messages that report any kind of legal activity. So that's something to pay attention to as well. But I hand them papers showing onward travel. They give us the stamp. Now, here's the next thing, next tip for you, next key is make sure you check the stamp that they give you, because they write on there how many days that visa, that tourist visa, is for. 90 days is the longest legal tourist visa right now. And so that's what we go for every time. We hope that they write 90 days. You need to make sure though, because if you show them a bus ticket or a plane ticket that's a week later, they probably are not, or they may not give you the full 90 days. They might write 7 days for your tourist visa. So you need to make sure you keep that in mind and make sure that they stamp it and write 90 days in there. So that's a tip for you as well. All right, so we verify, we make sure that they gave us the 90 days. Then we walk out the doors, and there's another little conveyor there again, kind of like there was on Nicaragua, except this one's a little bit nicer. Throw your stuff on there for customs. I walk right by because I don't have anything. And we go out, back to the car, pay the lady a couple bucks, and we're on the road passing all of these trucks again. Now, there is one stop on the road as you're leaving the border area where they will stop and they will look at your car, and like he checked to make sure I had the Reteve and Marchamo, which we talk about also in the transportation section, that those were up to date. That's kind of like your license plates and emissions. So he checked that those were up to date, and then they ask you if your car went to Nicaragua or not. If you say, no, we never went to Nicaragua in the car, no big deal, you're on the road, boom. Otherwise, they're gonna ask you probably some follow-up questions, make sure you got inspected and you have the paperwork showing that your car went through the process, and so forth. But if you just drove to the border, parked, you don't have to worry about that. You just kind of go right, you know, they ask you, did you go to Nicaragua? You say no, and you just keep on going, all right? Then it was the ride back. We got to stop in Liberia for some a little treat of McDonald's, because we don't have McDonald's anywhere around here, and it's gross. It's fast food, but it's a guilty pleasure that we kind of reward ourselves with once in a blue moon when we go do border crossing. So anyway, so summarize. The trip went pretty smoothly today. There was no hiccups. The gentlemen on both sides and the ladies, everyone who checked our passports and everything was very pleasant. The only unpleasant part were the two that were quarreling when we first arrived in the parking lot over who got our couple of bucks for watching our car. And so aside from that little skirmish and the car accident that held us up, it was a smooth ride. The border was open, they were friendly, there weren't terrible lines. We didn't hit, this is the other thing, sometimes we'll hit right when buses hit, and then you have a long line and you can wait a really long time at the counters for them to stamp your passports and stuff. Wasn't the case today. It was pretty smooth. We missed the buses. However, right when we were coming back, there was a bus that came right after us, and so that was nice that we missed them. So overall, the border run was great. It was smooth, pretty standard stuff. The trip took a little bit longer than usual, but the actual crossing was pretty standard. I don't think it wasn't super fast, but it wasn't real long either. So pretty good border crossing today. The border's open, good to go. So that's how it works. So that's the border crossing today. I hope that information helped out. If you have questions about crossing the border or what that process is about, let us know. Leave a comment down below. Ask us whatever questions you may have. So you know, like I said, 90 days. Every 90 days you need to leave the country, because that's your visa expiration is 90 days. And so it's going to be a common occurrence until you apply for residency. And then you'll get your cedula, which is a little bit different, and then you don't have to cross the borders anymore, which is nice. But then there's a whole bunch of other things that are involved in that. So that's a whole nother video. But until you get your residency, you will need to cross the border. You can fly home to the States, you can, or wherever you're from. You can cross to Panama instead of Nicaragua, whatever works for you. You just have to leave the country every 90 days. So that's the deal. All right, so Steve with Cut the Crap and moved to Costa Rica. Make sure you give us a like and a follow. You know, push that follow button so you get the alerts, and make sure or if you're on YouTube, ring the bell so you get the updated alerts every time we put out a new video. And make sure you give us a like and a share. Share it with somebody who could use the information. Once again, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know any questions you have. We want to hear from you. We want to be able to engage in the conversation with you, and make sure you're getting the content, the information that you need to be successful. So give us a like and a follow, and we'll see you in the next video. Hope it helped.